My name is Caden Archer. I'm 33 years old and the youngest heir to a tech empire that doesn't want me. I was born into the Archer dynasty, billion-dollar innovations, Forbes covers, press conferences and three-piece suits, but while my siblings were molded into CEOs in training, I was the kid they left in the server room with a half-broken laptop and a silence I learned to wear like armor. I was never the chosen one. Not sharp enough. Not polished enough. Not ruthless enough. But I saw things they didn't. I heard things they shouldn't have said. And when my father died, I knew something was off. Still, nothing prepared me for the day the company's vice president, my father's most trusted ally, sued me for control and the judge stood up the moment I walked into the courtroom. That was the second time someone looked at me like I was a threat. The first time ended in a casket. The subpoena came at 6:17 a.m. A knock, then three more. Sharp. Rhythmic. Not the kind of knock you ignore. I opened the door in sweatpants. A man in a gray suit and aviators handed me a thick white envelope. Caden Archer, he asked, though he didn't wait for an answer. Just turned and walked back to the black sedan idling by the curb. I didn't open the envelope immediately. I stared at it like it might hiss. Then I ripped it open. Superior Court of Arizona, Civil Litigation Division. Plaintiff, Vivian Lockridge. Defendant, Caden Archer. Cause, breach of fiduciary duty. Fraudulent claim of majority voting rights. Misrepresentation of shareholder interests. My lungs stopped working for a second. Vivian. The woman who used to read bedtime stories in the boardroom while waiting for my dad's next big idea. The woman my father once called the spine of Archer Innovations. Now suing me. I dropped the papers on the marble kitchen island. A red light blinked on the security camera above the hallway. I glanced up. Then I walked straight over and pulled the plug. There are eyes in every wall of this house. My father made sure of that. 36 hours later, I was in downtown Phoenix. Courthouse Row. Tan concrete, black glass, the smell of city heat and law. Outside, press. Cameras. Too many questions. Inside, silence. And him. Judge Alastair Keegan. He looked up from his bench and froze. His eyes locked on mine. Something behind them moved. Not recognition. Not surprise. Something worse. He stood. The courtroom rustled. Mr. Archer, he said, slowly. Please confirm for the record, are you the son of Ethan Archer? My throat tightened. Yes, Your Honor. The room went still. No typing from the stenographer. No whisper from the gallery. Judge Keegan sat back, but his hands gripped the edge of the bench. That was the moment I knew this trial wasn't about business. It was about blood. You need a lawyer who's not afraid to piss off billionaires, Rowan Cruz told me over black coffee. And I don't like billionaires. I didn't trust him. But I had no one left to call. He skimmed the suit packet, flipped to the exhibit tabs, and narrowed his eyes. She's using the clause. The death clause. There is no death clause, I said. Rowan arched a brow. There is now. Vivian had filed a voting power reassignment form, retroactive to 3 days before my father's death. It transferred proxy control of all Class A shares to her in the event of his sudden incapacitation. His signature was clean. Too clean. She filed this yesterday? I asked. Rowan nodded. Stamped, filed, and somehow already accepted. He slid the paper across the table, finger tapping under the signature. Caden, your father's been dead 2 years. My hand froze. This signature belongs to a dead man. My father's signature curved perfectly on the page. The loops were steady. The ink fresh. I'd seen that signature 1,000 times, on contracts, patents, birthday cards. But he'd been buried for 26 months in a plot of desert earth with a stone cross and no flowers. Someone was playing God. Someone was making ghost sign papers. You need access to the internal archive, Rowan said. We were in the parking garage, level B2. Dim lights. Oil stains. A camera rotated slowly in the far corner. There's only one way to get it, he added. You have to break in. I didn't ask if it was legal. I already knew the answer. Power doesn't follow rules. It makes new ones. That night, I drove alone to Archer HQ, midnight. Downtown lights cold and white. Security at the front desk barely glanced up as I flashed my old ID badge, still active, still labeled executive access, though I hadn't used it in over a year. Elevator. 32 floors down. The basement archive smelled like dust and varnish. Lights flickered. Red sensors blinked from the corners like eyes. The keycard reader flashed green. Door hissed open. Rows of steel cabinets. Locked. Climate controlled. Soundproof. I walked straight to the executive internal records cabinet. Entered my father's old password, his favorite chess move, E4C5. The drawer clicked. Inside, a black binder labeled Class A voting protocols. I flipped through it. Page 27. There it was. No death clause. No proxy transfer upon incapacitation. I froze. A whisper behind me. I turned. Nothing. Then a sound, click, like a door shutting far down the corridor. I snapped the binder closed and backed out of the drawer. Walked fast. No footsteps, but I could feel it. I wasn't alone. At the elevator, the panel wouldn't light up. I pressed again. Nothing. Lockdown. I ran, back through the archive, into the south wing. Emergency stairs. Up 6 floors. Heart slamming against ribs. At level 24, I stopped. A light was on inside the media review room. Someone was in there. I crept in. Footage looped on a dusty screen, security cam from October 6th, 2 years ago. My father's last night alive. The feed showed the front entrance. A black SUV pulling up. License plate blurred. Passenger stepped out. Female. High heels. Coat. Vivian. Timestamp, 11:12 p.m. My father was found dead at 6:04 a.m. The video ended. No follow-up footage. No exit timestamp. Cut. Hidden. I downloaded what I could. As I removed the flash drive, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. You're in the building, a voice said. Male. Calm. Confident. Leave now. I didn't reply. The line went dead. I ran. Outside, the city buzzed like nothing had changed. But everything had. Back at my apartment, I pored over the footage. Replayed the timestamp. Froze it at her face. Low resolution, but no doubt. Vivian wasn't just filing fake clauses. She was at my father's house the night he died, and she'd lied about it under oath. There are things you can fake. A signature. A clause. A smile in court. But not time. Not presence. Not truth. I sent the footage to Rowan. 10 minutes later, he called back. Where did you get this? I told him. He paused. I'll file an emergency motion. If this is real, it changes everything. A beat. And Caden? Yeah. Be careful who you trust with that file. You're not the only one watching it. I didn't sleep that night. At 3:14 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Soft. Deliberate. I looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. Just as I turned back, my phone buzzed again. One message. No name. Just a sentence. Vivian was the last one in the room and your father never walked out. The next morning, Marina didn't answer my calls. By noon, her number went straight to voicemail. By 3:17 p.m., she was found unconscious in her apartment, face down, pills scattered, door locked from the inside. Attempted suicide. Or so they claimed. I was at the ER by 4. They wouldn't let me in at first. Immediate family only, the nurse said without looking up. I leaned in. She's the only family I have left. That made her look. 10 minutes later, I was at Marina's bedside. Tubes. Monitors. A rhythm beat slow and mechanical. Too clean. Too staged. She never kept pills in the apartment. She hated prescriptions. She once told me, medicine can fix the body, but lies will rot the mind. Something was off. There was a mark on her neck. Faint. Thumb-shaped. Someone silenced her. Someone was cleaning house. I left the hospital at dusk. The city looked different. Sharper. Angled like a blade pressed against the throat. Inside my car, I pulled up Marina's call logs. Last outgoing call, 11:43 p.m. To Nolan Archer. My brother. My mentor. My ghost in the boardroom. I dialed him. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. Third time. Caden, he answered, cold. I know you talked to her. A beat. You don't call for months, and now you want to interrogate me? She's in the hospital. She almost died last night. Silence. I didn't know, he said finally. Bullshit. Nolan, what did she find? I don't know what you're talking about. Then he hung up. I drove straight to AMC Tower. Nolan's office was on 41. But I didn't go there. I went to the internal compliance suite, floor 18, north side. A place no one visits unless you're either covering tracks or unearthing them. The security door had a thumb scanner. I'd kept my father's old burner phone, one with his biometric thumbprint saved from a digital pad he used to carry. A tech relic. Illegal now. Still worked. Ping. Door opened. Fluorescent lighting buzzed overhead. The room was empty except for a single desktop and a wall of locked drawers. I sat. Logged in with my dad's credentials. Only one folder showed up. Internal Investigations, Level 4, Restricted. Inside, 7 files. One labeled K. Frost, Board Activity Irregularities. Kellen Frost. My father's best friend. CFO Emeritus. Trusted like blood. I clicked. A PDF loaded. Transfer summaries. Anonymous deposits. Stock shifts. A shell company under a Cayman bank, funneling tens of millions from Archer Innovations to a private fund. And Marina's name was on the report. Filed last month. She knew. And they knew she knew. She wasn't a suicide attempt. She was a threat. I downloaded everything to a secure drive. Stood up. Walked fast. But I wasn't fast enough. The overhead speaker clicked on. A voice came through, clear and close. You're getting sloppy, Caden. I froze. I warned you once. This time I won't knock. Then the lights went out. I ran. Down the hall. Down the stairwell. All 18 flights. Outside, I didn't stop until I hit the alley across the block and threw up behind a trash compactor. Not from fear. From rage. This is what happens, my father once said, when loyalty is a word used by liars. I called Rowan. No answer. Then a text came through. Meet me at the Dome. Bring everything. The Dome was a bar downtown, low lights, louder rumors. When I arrived, it was half full. Jazz in the corner. Waitresses wearing black. I spotted Rowan at the back booth. He wasn't alone. Sitting across from him, back to me, was Vivian Lockridge. She turned slowly. Smiled. I was just telling Rowan, she said, how impressive your little investigation's been. Rowan didn't meet my eyes. My hand curled into a fist. Vivian leaned forward. But you're still playing checkers, Caden. And this. She slid a flash drive across the table. This is chess. Rowan looked up. She's threatening to bury Marina. And you. I didn't sit. I stared at the drive. At Vivian. At Rowan. And I understood. This wasn't about control. It was about erasure. Erasing my father. Erasing Marina. Erasing me. And I had just walked into the trap with the receipts in my hand. Rowan rose. We can talk about this. No, I said. I'm done talking. I walked out. And as the door shut behind me, I heard Vivian laugh. Soft. Precise. Like a trigger being pulled. She's next, she said. Unless you give us the drive. I didn't sleep that night either. But I learned something new. When wolves smile, it's never peace. It's hunger. The sun had barely risen when I got the call. Block number. Again. A whisper this time, check your father's offshore accounts. Now. Then silence. I didn't wait. I drove to the only person who could help, Theo Lansing. Former forensic accountant for the SEC, fired for leaking executive fraud files to the press. Now living out of a studio apartment that smelled like burnt coffee and quiet anger. You know this'll get me blacklisted again, right? He muttered as he typed, hunched over 3 mismatched monitors. You were never off the blacklist, I said. He cracked a smile. Fair. 10 minutes later, he found it. Here, he said, pointing to a flagged transaction. Your father opened a side account in Belize under a trust name, Horizon Foundation. Set up 2 weeks before he died. How much? Just shy of $80 million. My mouth went dry. Transferred to a private holding company called Black Lily Ventures. Owned by her. He scrolled. My heart kicked. Owned by your brother, Theo said. Nolan. I sat in my car for a long time. Engine off. Breathing shallow. I kept hearing my father's voice, a man who leaves no shadows as either a coward or a killer. And suddenly I didn't know which my brother was. I called Rowan again. He finally picked up. I know about the Horizon account, I said. And Black Lily. And Nolan. Silence. Then, you need to stop, Caden. That wasn't surprise in his voice. It was warning. You knew? I asked. You think Vivian came to that meeting alone? A beat. She came with Nolan. The pieces shifted. Rowan had never been my ally. He was their fixer. Their leverage. And I'd given him the flash drive. Why? I asked. Because truth doesn't matter when power writes the script. I hung up. By noon, I was outside Marina's hospital room again. The door was guarded. Plainclothes. No badges. One looked me up and down. Family, he asked. Brother. He didn't move. She's under protective custody, he said. Court order. What court? Confidential. He reached for his radio. I walked. Quick turn down the hall, then down the stairwell. Level 3. Back entrance. Waited 10 minutes. Then slipped in with a med-tech pushing linens. Marina's room was quiet. She was awake. Eyes barely open. 4 in her hand. Caden, she whispered. Who did this? I asked. She blinked, slow. Mouth dry. She tried to speak, then shook her head. I leaned closer. She raised her hand and scribbled something on my palm with her finger. A single letter. V. Vivian. That night, I broke into my father's house. Desert air. Dry heat. A moon sharp enough to cut. The house hadn't been touched. Frozen in time. His cologne still faint on the hallway mirror. I went to his study. Books untouched. Liquor half full. Safe behind the painting. I knew the code. His birthday. Backwards. 013150. It clicked open. Inside, folders, hard drives, a leather notebook. And something else. A sealed envelope. My name on the front. I opened it. Inside, a single page. Handwritten. In his slanted script. If you're reading this, they've already tried to erase me. He named them. Nolan. Vivian. And one more. Kellen Frost. The man I once called Uncle. My father had left a dead man's confession and everything I needed to burn them down. I stood there, hands shaking. And then I heard it. A floorboard creaked. Not mine. From the hallway. Then another. They were in the house. I shut the safe. Grabbed the notebook. Slipped out the back. Ran through the gravel yard as headlights snapped on behind me. A voice yelled. Gun drawn. I dove behind the old shed, hard hammering. They weren't trying to scare me anymore. They were hunting me. And someone on the inside had unlocked the gate. Light spilled across my kitchen counter, sharp as a blade. I hadn't slept. Not since the bar. Not since Marina's hospital scribble. Not since the call about the offshore accounts. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. I didn't answer. Instead, I dialed the one name I never thought I would. Keegan. His voicemail beeped. I left a terse message, we need to talk. Now. 2 minutes later, an address popped up. His house. I pulled into a gated cul-de-sac that smelled of pine and old wealth. The walls were tall. Cameras everywhere. Eyes in every corner. The front door was a deep mahogany, slick and silent. I knocked once. A click. He opened it himself. Gray hair. Tired face. Eyes like he'd seen too much. I was wondering when you'd call, he said. No invitation. No warmth. Inside, silence as heavy as guilt. You told me once, he said as he led me down a hallway, that truth is the sharpest weapon. I didn't reply. I followed. In his study, walls lined with law books still smelling of new leather. Papers stacked in perfect order, except one drawer slightly ajar. A black camera perched like a vulture. He watched me notice it. You see too much, Caden, he said. But you see only what they want you to see. A slow step closer. Then another. His voice dropped. Your father and we planted the seeds of this company together. But we feared what it would become. I froze. What are you? He lifted a key. Old. Heavy. Something you should see. He led me to a basement door, hidden behind a portrait of the company's first headquarters. Cold air hit like a breath from the grave. Down 6 concrete steps. No lights. Just darkness and the sound of our footsteps. At the bottom, Keegan flipped a switch. A room glowed under a single hanging bulb. Metal cabinets. Files. A computer still logged in. Keegan waved a hand. Your father left this for you. He didn't have to say more. I knew the stakes. I sat. Hands trembling. The screen showed a folder labeled Truth_Legacy_Archer. I clicked. Then I saw it. Files dated the month before my father's death. One document flickered into view. Diary_transcript.txt. I opened it. First line. They don't know what's buried in the vault. My breath stopped. Next file. Vault_access_code.txt. Numbers scrolled. Same code I later used on my father's safe. Then. Final_directive.mp4. I clicked. His face filled the screen. Pale. Eyes tired but alive. Caden, he began. You're reading this because they succeeded in making me dead on paper. But I'm not gone. Not really. His voice changed, softer. Urgent. Vivian wasn't the threat. Kellen was. The room tilted. I blinked. Kellen. The man I trusted more than most. The man who smiled too easily at board meetings. The next line made me stagger. He orchestrated it all. The death clause. The transfers. The threats. Even Marina's incident was meant to divert you. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then I heard a noise behind me. Not Keegan. A shuffle. A breath. Too close. Slow motion kicked in. A shadow fell across the desk. A glint of metal. I turned. And saw Kellen Frost standing in the doorway. No fear. No hesitation. Just cold intent. Surprised to see me, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. I see everything, he continued. But you saw too much. I didn't have time to think. Only react. Before I could move, he snapped his fingers. Two loud clicks echoed. Keegan jerked forward, cuffs clicking tight. Kellen smirked. I hoped you'd never find this, he said, nodding at the screen. You're not the son of the heir anymore. You're a threat. I swallowed hard. A whisper of memory surfaced. My father once said, the real enemy hides in plain sight. I hadn't understood then. But I did now. Kellen stepped closer. Footsteps slow. Predatory. I scanned the room. Only one window. Frosted. Out of reach. No escape. Not yet. You think you're clever, he said. But you're just desperate. His eyes flicked to the screen. Let me guess, he sneered. You think this changes everything. I met his gaze. I didn't speak. I smiled. And that made him pause. Because what came next wasn't fear. It was certainty. I knew one thing he didn't. I knew where the copied hard drive was. The one Marina hid. And I knew how to use it. Kellen's smirk faltered. Just a fraction. Just enough. I reached into my pocket. He didn't see it. Not yet. I held up the encrypted flash drive. The one with the real evidence. Not just the transcripts. Not just numbers. The recording of Kellen's own words. He stalled. I pushed a button. Lights flickered. The recording played loudly. In my father's voice, but with Kellen speaking over it. Clear as day. A confession. Not hidden. Not buried. Live audio. Unfiltered. I saw Kellen's eyes widen. Just before everything shattered. I didn't just expose him. I exposed the entire house of cards. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't just a trial anymore. It was war. His breath caught. And as the recording echoed, Kellen didn't betray the company, he betrayed my father. The courtroom was packed. Every bench filled. Media clustered in the back like vultures in suits. Kellen stood at the plaintiff's table, crisp in a navy suit that couldn't mask the sweat beading along his temples. His lawyer whispered furiously beside him, but his eyes never left mine. He didn't blink. Didn't smirk. Because now, he knew. On my side, Marina sat behind me, bandages still on her neck but her posture unshaken. Beside her, Keegan, quiet, but finally free. The charges against him dropped the second my father's final directive aired. The truth, in high definition. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Except me. Because the moment he locked eyes with me, the room stilled. Mr. Archer, Judge Holloway said, voice grave. You may not remember me. But I remember your father. His hand trembled slightly as he adjusted his robe. He saved my family. During a case in '96. Took a loss that cost him a fortune just to stop a corrupt deal. I never forgot. Gasps rippled. Holloway's voice dropped. You have the floor. I stepped forward. My heartbeat echoed louder than my footsteps. Your Honor, I said. This case isn't about a hostile takeover. It's about betrayal. I turned to face Kellen. This man forged documents, blackmailed board members, and manipulated my father's death to gain control of a legacy he never built. Screens behind me lit up. Exhibit A, Keegan's vault video. Exhibit B, Marina's email trail, each encrypted file decrypted and clean. Exhibit C, Kellen's own voice, from a recording pulled from the encrypted drive I handed the court clerk at dawn. His voice played loud. Once Archer's out, we bury the board. We rename the company. No legacy. No heirs. Whispers turned to murmurs. Cameras flashed. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Silence in the court. Then a pause. And Judge Holloway leaned forward. Mr. Frost, do you deny these statements? Kellen stood. Chest high. I do. His voice was sharp. Unflinching. Then came the twist. The courtroom doors opened. 2 FBI agents walked in. One carried a folder. The other, handcuffs. Agent Mendez addressed the judge. Your Honor. This morning we received new evidence from Mr. Archer, including bank transfers tied to shell corporations and offshore laundering under Frost's direction. Shock hit like a slap. The agents approached. Kellen stepped back. No. You can't. But they didn't hesitate. Click. The cuffs bit hard. As they rid him his rights, Kellen turned to me. And for the first time, his eyes showed fear. I made this place what it is, he hissed. No, I said. You poisoned it. Outside, the sun finally broke through. Reporters swarmed. I didn't speak. Didn't wave. I walked past them. Straight through the courthouse steps. Past the cameras. Toward the future that had once been stolen. Marina caught up, placing a hand on my arm. You okay? She asked. No, I said. But I will be. Because the truth didn't fix everything. It just started the healing. 2 weeks later, I stood in the boardroom again. My father's chair, empty, but not forgotten. The board voted unanimously. I was named interim CEO. Not because I fought for power, but because I earned back the truth. There's a saying, legacy isn't what we leave in buildings or money. It's what survives when everything else is torn down. I looked out the glass wall of the tower. The skyline stretched wide like a second chance. Vivian resigned quietly. The board gave her immunity for testifying. But trust takes more than a deal. It takes time. And choice. Keegan's final words echoed as I signed the resolution. They never expected the quiet son to speak loudest. Weeks passed. The scandal faded. Reforms were implemented. I visited my father's grave on a fogged October morning. Left no flowers. Only a folded copy of the court order declaring Kellen Frost's lifetime ban from any corporate board in the U.S. And a whisper. You were right, Dad. They never saw me coming. A breeze stirred the leaves. I turned. And walked away. Not toward revenge. Not toward fame. But toward rebuilding something my family tried to bury. Integrity. Because in the end, truth doesn't roar. It outlasts. It haunts. And it wins.